Hey everybody, this is Nate Smoyer, and you're listening to the Tech Nest Podcast. This is the show where we sit down with the leaders in real estate and technology to find out what they're doing to transform the way we buy, sell, and invest in real estate. If you've got an interest in real estate and technology, stick around. You're in the right place.
We've got a great show for you guys today. Imagine this. You're renting where you live, and you earn back your rent as an investment. So typically you have to buy the house to be able to get any money back out of it. But imagine you could be renting it and then you get paid out on investment. Well, this is basically what Arrived Homes is working on. Today I got to interview the CEO. His name is Ryan Frazier. Very smart. He knows what he's doing here. And what they've created is a fund that renters who rent Arrived homes can then participate in this fund and then earn dividends back on the fund as long as, they hold the shares of the fund. And, I'm probably not doing the best job of explaining what they do. So let's just go ahead, jump right into the interview so you can hear how Ryan talks about it and the opportunity this presents. Check it out. Well, hey, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking aside the time. I know people are probably listening to this somewhere during the week, but it is a Saturday, so I do appreciate that. As any other CEO in the startup space, you're hustling and grinding, I'm sure, 7 days a week. So there's probably not much difference between Monday and Saturday. But
yeah, it's hard to do Saturday in Seattle. So
yeah,
I'm willing to.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's start off with the basics here. Why don't you go ahead and let everyone know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Frazier. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Arrived Homes. And we're a way for people to build home equity with the freedom of renting. So our members rent from us, and a portion of that rent every month accrues into our real estate fund. So it's a way of building home equity without committing to a single home or a single city. So that's what we're working on.
Very cool. And, I know that you and I had an opportunity to talk many months back, prior to you were even really starting with Arrived. I don't think you even had the name yet. But and we were talking through like multiple different ideas that you had and you're working on. So can you possibly share some of your background and the story as to how you ended up starting Arrived?
Yeah, happy to. I mean, I think that the idea itself was kind of a hangnail for a couple of years. Between my co-founder and I, we were kind of crunching the numbers, and we basically moved every year for the last 10 years. And so the idea of a 30-year mortgage or just committing to a single home for a very long term just kind of seemed further and further away. But at the same time, we were wanting to build an investment in real estate, and we had obviously learned about kind of the wealth that can come from that, and in general, just want to drive our housing costs down or how much we're spending per month, and that was a long-term benefit of home ownership that we were feeling like we weren't going to be able to kind of get to. Yeah. And so a couple of years ago, we were kind of renting, but investing maybe what we would have used as a down payment in like public real estate funds. And we were using the kind of dividends and return from that to basically offset rent. And there were periods of time when it worked really well. We were able to offset like 70% of our rent at times. But other times it was pretty challenging, just as the market moved on kind of sentiment and the latest news cycle. And so for us, as we were kind of using it for these like short-term objectives, I don't know, there were just challenges with it. And so that kind of got us thinking of, okay, what would a consumer-focused version of this look like? Something that was really easy for people to use and to understand, that allowed them to rent, but also to build ownership in real estate and kind of bring those two things together.
Yeah, I love the creativity there, right there off the bat, of leveraging public REITs to pay your rent. I mean, that's such a great hack. And it's not even a hack. I mean, it's just it's so straightforward, but at the same time creative. So I love that. So let's start getting into the nitty gritty here. What's the real big problem then Arrived is looking to solve?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for us is just the flexibility in housing today, where we see more and more people are choosing to rent, and part of that is certainly real estate prices, but there's another piece, which is people don't or can't commit to the area that they're currently living in for more than a couple of years. Maybe they're moving for work, or they know that they want to relocate in the future, or they don't know what their family's going to look like 3 or 5 or 10 years down the line. And so it makes buying really tough. And so we really want to kind of be a replacement for that, for those individuals that have chosen okay, renting for flexibility is right for me right now. And we're trying to give them kind of rent plus. So rent plus the benefits of being able to build an investment for that period.
Yeah, I mean, because people want the benefits of homeownership. They want the stability of something that long term has upside. Flexibilities of equity, whether you're doing either cash out or you're doing a HELOC. That gives you those types of things. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to commit, like you said, 30-year mortgage. I think that a lot of, especially the millennial audience, my friends, that 30 years sounds like a long time to be planting down in one spot. There's no way I could make a 30-year commitment, let alone a 5-year. It seems like the current model is outdated, and this seems like a pretty interesting take on correcting that. So maybe walk me through here an example. Right. So let's say I'm a renter, right? Mm-hmm. How does Arrived, how do I work with Arrived, and what's that process look like?
Yeah. So oftentimes the starting point is people are coming to us and they're looking to, move someplace new. So maybe their lease is coming up in the next couple of months. We help them find a home either already in our network or available on the market. Right. And then Arrived buys that home and rents it to the individual. They make what amounts to kind of a security deposit, but in place of that, they make an initial investment into our real estate fund, and then a percentage of their rent every month also gets contributed to their account. But yeah, basically our company kind of buys the home and we rent it out to the individual, and then they get ownership in our real estate fund.
So do you have realtors then who are helping them shop for homes that fit the criteria you're willing to buy? Is that kind of like they have to meet a screening criteria that, hey, they're good fit for Arrived? How do you guys pick those homes? Because I imagine, if I'm going out to buy a house without my money, I might try and push the boundaries a lot on that to see what can I squeeze in, what can I get?
Yeah, so part of the, I guess the available homes are going to be ones that we've already purchased. Outside of that, we basically have a more of the kind of quantitative or math-based screening of homes that are available, and it kind of goes through that first.
Got it.
And then the kind of waiting members get to provide their qualitative feedback after that. Yes, no, this fits the criteria I'm looking for. And we try to basically combine the best of both. So more of our number-based assessment, and then the Arrived members more qualitative appeal-based assessment as a secondary measure.
Yeah. What are some of the criteria that you're looking for? Obviously, don't give away the secret sauce here, but what are you looking for that you think is going to be the best fit for your portfolio, as well as hit the masses of people looking for that type of home?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe a cliche, but location is really important for us. Like, there's specific areas of cities that we're looking at. Number one, outside of that, it's specific floor plans that we feel like are good long-term investments right now. That are maybe in undersupply, and that's specific to the city as well. But those are some of the kind of important criteria. And then after that, it goes to the price we could purchase for and what we could rent it out for. So fairly simple in that regard.
Yeah. And so what are some of those, I guess, you have different states or cities then that you're currently focused on?
Yeah. So our first properties are in kind of what I guess we're referring to as the heartland, which is in some ways subjective, but essentially growing cities in the middle of the country. And so we're not active in, let's say, the top 20 cities right now. We're kind of looking at fast growing cities within the top 100 though.
Okay.
And kind of using that to build up in this first phase and then figure out when's the right time to kind of grow beyond that.
There's so many companies focused on the Midwest and Heartland right now. I think there is a driving attraction to those cities. The cost of living is good. Tech companies now can be anywhere. They don't have to be, you get your start in the Bay Area is what I'm seeing now. People say, still start your company in the Bay Area, but then don't try and scale it there. Well, then they move to other cities. Like, I think like Tulsa, Oklahoma right now is like paying people, if you work remote, to like move there.
Yeah. We've seen a couple of cities doing that actually. Kind of oddly enough, they're paying like relocation fees or up to $10,000 to relocate. It's pretty interesting.
It is fascinating to think about that. I mean, but that's like, I think that's some confirmation for, kind of the path that you guys are headed down, because those are cities recognizing that today's people who are, highly skilled professionals still don't want to be tethered by, long-term commitments, and they want some flexibility. And if they're working remote, I mean, that's the ideal persona. I mean, it's minimal impact on a city. They tend to have more, discretionary funds. So, I mean, it's an interesting thing. And I think it lends to what you guys are doing as proof that, hey, this is something that people are asking for. I mean, since I kind of just answered this question, but I want to get it from you. Why do you think right now is the time to push on this sort of model?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure like why right now. It feels like it's been something that's been building for the last couple of years, where for people we're talking to who are interested in Arrive, they maybe saw what had happened in 2008, 2009. They aren't wanting to take on more debt, and they may have, student loans could be a part of that, but not necessarily. I think there's just an aversion to getting locked in and getting locked into these large mortgages. And so that's one piece of it. The other is certainly, like, it does seem that remote work in some ways, but in general, just the willingness to move to new cities, to take on a job opportunity you're excited about, is growing quickly. And cities are supporting it. As you were saying, they're seeing it as kind of a wedge to bring new industries and new companies to their area by being friendly to remote workers.
Yep.
There's all of the co-working that has kind of blown up as well. So I think people's mindset and openness to that has shifted a bit. And so for us, that's a piece of it. The thing we're trying to think about from a timing perspective is, we are operating in a market where our supply is based on, the prices of all of these properties. And so we're also kind of watching the market very closely, while we build up our, base for the business now and figuring out, like, I don't know, what does the next 3 to 5 to 10 years look like in real estate prices in the different areas that we're in.
Yeah, I'll be looking for that detailed report so I know where to put my money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if anyone's guessed to some degree, I mean, I'm sure you follow, well, I mean, I don't know how much you follow the pundits, but I mean, I laugh when I look back at the last 3 years, 4 years of, media coverage of the real estate industry, because it seems like for the last 3-4 years, the narrative is a recession is going to hit next year and it's going to be huge. I keep hearing this, and while I believe and still think that real estate does operate in cycles, I've just chosen, I'm like, I can't even listen to this stuff anymore. I'm in this long term. And so when you talk about knowing prices, I mean, that's hard to know in 10 years, but if you're working for a 10-year vision, I think that's the right perspective, because otherwise you're just setting yourself up to get burned if you're looking to do exits in 2 and 3 years. And I think that even I don't want to equate iBuyers to flippers, but iBuyers are finding extreme difficulties in earning a profit on their quick turnarounds. And I can't remember who it was that just put out the report, but it was basically flippers in the US are reporting like the smallest margins that they've ever put up. I mean, it's extremely tough to get margins on that quick turnaround. And it just, part of the industry. It's not that fast moving. The people might be, but the industry itself is pretty slow. Yeah. So when did you guys actually launch the site and announce that you were going to be doing this? Because I know it was just this year, right?
Yeah. So we started the business this year. Went through some fun with securities and real estate law for a while to make that work, and then we launched officially in July. So still early.
What have you been doing to gain traction? Because I know you guys you're bootstrapping this, you're no stranger to the startup world. So I'm just curious what you've been doing to gain some traction and get some adoption going.
Yeah, I think for my co-founder and I, we're just very eager to learn from people who get intrigued by our model. And so really what we've been doing, just kind of putting the information out there on forums like Reddit or on social media like Twitter, and using that to seek feedback. It was kind of our gut, but it did play out that like housing is such a polarizing topic that as we put it out there, it tends to get people talking. And so that's been really helpful for us. And so we haven't done any like paid channels or anything like that. It's really just been, let's engage in these niche communities and get people talking about it and get as much feedback as we can.
Yeah. I can't agree more. And you're based right in Seattle. So housing is like constant discussion. I mean, and it wasn't that long ago. I was also in the Northwest, and it feels like, in some cities like DC or Chicago, politics is commonly, is the topic of choice. It seems like in the Northwest, it's now all housing and real estate because the boom has been so significant, but also that there's, significant challenges for people to try and own, real estate up in that area. So it makes a lot of sense to work in those organic channels to get that feedback. I want to talk about this calculator you got on your website, because so. We'll plug the website at the end of the show, but I mean, arrivedhomes.com is the site if you guys want to check it out. So I'm looking at this right now, and I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. So I've got, I set my monthly rent $1,500. Initial investment is $3,000. So that's first month's rent and deposit. Is that what that is?
Yeah, essentially it's kind of in place of the deposit, but it's in addition to your first month's rent. Okay.
So that is okay. That's 2. And let's say I plan on staying at this place for 3 years. Actually, I'm going to go down to 2 because I'm hyper millennial and I can't do anything more than 2 years. So, and then it spits out investment return or estimated investment return of $6,436. So that's including my initial $3,000. So really, I'm going to get, as long as I didn't trash the place, and causing damages, I'm looking at a potential return of $3,400.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. It's that we end up kind of contributing basically 7% of your rent each month into that. And then because you're an investor in the fund, you get your share of dividends or of rent and appreciation back. And so that kind of contributes to the investment over that period.
And so do I have to cash out my shares when I move out of an arrived home, or do I get to keep that and then continue receiving dividends so long as I don't withdraw my money?
Yeah, you get to keep it. We suspect some may want to cash out and then they've decided now is the time to buy a home. So they're going to use that as their down payment. And so we can help facilitate that. And then for others, this becomes, a real estate investment for them, just an investment account like any other in Fidelity or Vanguard or something like that. Yeah.
It makes a ton of sense. So we have this initial investment up front. So they have to show some and put some skin in the game. They're moving into the house that you guys have acquired. And then on a regular basis, the fund is getting contributions. So you're constantly increasing the fund's ability to expand. And at the same time, the tenant doesn't feel like they're just lining the pockets of their landlord, so to speak. They're seeing a potential of earning something back, whereas the alternative was earning nothing back. And so now you have this upside to, well, I don't want to live in a different unit because it's not going to pay me back. I want to live in the unit that's going to pay me back.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I want to make sure I understand. So then you have that piece of the business. Are you also the property manager?
Yeah, we do manage the properties as well. So all of our members work directly with us.
Got it. Is there, with property management businesses, because I've looked into them and either starting my own and also looked into a few of the franchises. What I kept coming across is that there's like a density tipping point that you have to reach to really make that work. And then, like in most businesses, like there's growth stages, right? Have you been able to figure out what that is going to be for you guys? Because you clearly have a different financial model here than a traditional property management company would have.
Yeah, I think we definitely have a slightly different model. I mean, we are the property owner as well. So no different than, I guess, a property owner that's acting as their own landlord. In the way that we work with our members and in having them kind of co-invest and also kind of cooperate with us on how they're taking care of the properties. Our hope is like that adds efficiency to the model.
Yeah.
But I think we're still learning what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys have been at it for a few months.
Yeah. I think it'll take us some time. But to your point, we are not like the property management business, is not like what we will live or die by. So we aren't kind of only operating based on the income or margins from that. So I think that gives us some flexibility early on where, we don't have to rush to acquire a certain number of properties that we're managing to, be able to keep the lights on. I mean, the model is a little bit different than that.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was alluding to. So, for those who are listening who may not be familiar, like with property management companies, they're constantly at this push and pull of they need more units to get the revenue to make the business make sense. But then they run into this challenge of, well, we have too many units that we can effectively manage, so we have to go higher. But in order to hire, we've got to raise the number of units. I mean, it's a constant push and pull. But you're not, because you're the owner, you don't have those added layers of fixed expenses getting in the way of that so that you can actually take a different path in scaling, which to me, if I was renting from you guys, then it actually is more attractive in knowing that, because I want to know that there's stability and it's not going to be the thing of like, you just don't have time to come fix my toilet, so I'm stuck till Saturday, that kind of thing. which is unfortunately what you read about in the reviews of most or many property management companies. So before we got started here on the interview, you had briefly mentioned that you're working on a trade-in program. Can you tell me more about that program and how that works? Because I think this is really interesting.
Sure. Yeah. And that came out of feedback from people we were talking to. As we're talking to interested members, we kept hearing, look, we already own a home, but we either regret buying, or it's no longer in the area of the city we want, or we know we're going to have to move in a couple of years. Can we just trade you our home? And then, maybe we'll stay here for a little while longer, or can we move into another arrived property? And we had been thinking about how this might work for a while, particularly for actually an older demographic that we've been talking to that was wanting a bit more flexibility and it built up, a lot of equity in their home and weren't really sure what they wanted to do with it. So from that feedback, we kind of recently came up with and launched this trade-in program, which is essentially a member could come to us, say, look, we want to trade in our home, we'll rent it back for a period of time. We'll convert some amount of our home equity into the real estate fund, and then basically join a ride that way. So it's kind of a way to get into the network if you're already a homeowner.
That makes a lot of sense. So I want to unpack this a little bit. So let me start with, so you talked about potentially older demographic who's built up a lot of equity. So what are the alternatives to them doing this? Because it sounds on the surface like a fairly low friction offer. So I want to maybe talk through what are the alternatives to see how this compares.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's interesting is in general, these decisions with housing or in real estate are so personal. So every situation is fairly unique. But if someone's wanting to, sell their home or access that equity, then the traditional process is, put it on the market, sell your home. There's the closing costs and commission and fees that I think are a hot topic right now that a lot of people are thinking about.
Yep.
And then you move out and you go buy another home or rent somewhere else. And I think what we're saying is we can have a more efficient process where you still get the equivalent of selling your home. You trade it into Arrive. You can access your home equity in cash if you'd like, or you can convert it into our real estate fund. And there's a lot less fees for doing that because you aren't going through a whole buy and sell process. You can continue living in the home at that point. So if you were thinking about, look, I want to lock in the value of my home today, but I don't want to leave yet. I think it's a really kind of interesting offering.
Yeah. And so like you said, you could sell it. There's, I guess, reverse mortgages, which aren't too hot right now, but I do remember multiple times where in downturns, reverse mortgages can really pick up if you don't want to sell, you want to stay employed, but there's obviously risks and lots of things to consider with that. It just makes a lot of sense. And then even for other people who, like you said, we were talking about before the show, and I've read multiple, I think Housing Wire did a write-up about millennials regretting buying. Probably the first time the water heater blew or something like that. It's like, man,
that happened to me.
Yeah. Water heater's not cheap, or, a furnace or something like that. And, the truth is it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and you have to consider those costs. And when you start adding that up with down payment, with insurance, taxes, it's not always the cheaper alternative that my real estate agent friends sometimes will use as a selling point. So it makes a lot of sense. There's going to be people who want to just trade in. Is it too early to say the Carvana of real estate? Is that a thing? Is that how that works?
Probably too early, but yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. No, I think it's cool. So I want to shift a little bit because obviously if you're buying real estate, that can be a fairly capital intensive process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously you're growing the fund incrementally month by month by having tenants. So that's good. But is that going to be enough to scale operations, or are you going to be looking to outside capital in order to scale?
Yeah, so we do have another kind of member base, I should say, that invest in the fund or invest into Arrived, who don't live in the homes as well, and they're really looking at it as access to the income and appreciation that can come from real estate, and so they essentially help facilitate our ability to grow and support the members that are living in the homes.
Got it. And is that something that you're privately offering or publicly going to be offering?
Yeah, so we have information about it on our website. We're privately offering that today, and kind of having conversations there. But ultimately, we plan to keep opening it up and allow people to invest that way more broadly. I think the interesting thing that we've seen is just because there's kind of the idea of like a home savings account that we've come into where people are saving for future down payments, but it's just kind of sitting and not really doing anything for them for a period of time. And it's like, if there's a easy way to put that to work in real estate in the cities where they're living, or in cities that are good investments during that period of time, could be compelling for a lot of people who are still renting. Yeah,
I think it totally is. I've got a few friends that they want the plus sides of the real estate, but they don't want to do the long term, and so this is the kind of thing that I think offers that up. And I think it's such a unique model that it probably lends itself to appearing and will likely be a safer investment route than some of the other alternatives that may exist out there that people would be comparing against. Well, very cool. So I want to shift the whole conversation. I feel like we've delved into this, and I think it's really interesting, and I'm excited to see where you guys continue to go with this. But now we are on to my favorite segment of the show. I like to call this For the Future. So For the Future is a segment where I get to ask each guest who comes on the show to give their best predictions based on the following 4 questions. Ryan, are you ready to play?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. What does Arrived Homes look like 1 year from now?
Yeah. 1 year from now, it seems so far away, but still quite close. My hope, 1 year from now, I think, we'll be really dialed in on the model in terms of how people come to us with interest in joining Arrived, and just making it very easy to place them in a home and have them building investment in our real estate fund, and across multiple cities. I think we're still really figuring out that process and what's the best experience for those new members, and a lot of early learnings, but my hope is we really dial that in over the next year.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2, what will the housing market look like 1 year from now?
Yeah, I don't know that, I guess our forecast on the housing market a year from now is that probably not too much will change. I think housing in general follows a little bit longer cycles. It does seem like there's been an uptick in the iBuyers that you mentioned before, and I'm very curious to see how they expand across the country, and if people start to see that as like a very viable way to sell, especially if there's any correction in housing prices, or housing prices start to come down, like you mentioned, people have been forecasting for the last 3 years. But I don't know, how different it will look 12 months from now than today.
Yeah, I have to piggyback on that. It's not just the housing correction that's been forecasted. The script I often hear from agents that, and I get these phone calls, and I feel okay about picking on agents. You know, I worked as an agent. I'm still licensed in Washington. And the script was interest rates are going up. They're climbing. You know, you got to get in now. And I look back, I'm like, they've been flat. They've really gone anywhere. So who knows? 1 year from now, I tend to agree with you. It's probably going to be somewhat similar. Question 3. What's one industry trend you think will continue, but you wish would go away?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm really not sure. And I apologize, but I'm not sure. The wish would go away is the tough one for me.
Yep. This is a rather new question. I only implemented this, I think, for season 5. I changed it from the first 4 seasons.
Yeah, I don't know how a good answer for you. I guess the biggest one for me is the current kind of offline process with buying homes today and selling homes today, and the amount of paperwork through when you're buying or selling with a mortgage.
Yep.
It seems like that is continuing. I know there's a lot of companies that are really trying to add efficiency to that process.
Yep.
But anytime there's, the mortgage or the bank in the middle, and they have, all the check boxes that they need to see there before they allow it to happen. I just feel like that process will continue to be a challenge, and offline. But I wish that, some of these companies that are tackling that would have some success.
Got it. And question number 4, and this is the final for the future. What's one thing you believe will dramatically change or fade away in real estate as a result of technological advances?
Yeah, I think it still feels like, for whatever reason, the visibility to like the housing options that exist, it is still kind of opaque, in terms of like, as long as Zillow has been around and with the traction that you see Compass or Redfin and everyone making, for some reason it still feels like viewing housing supply is still very challenging, both for renters, for buyers, for sellers. And so my hope is that that process can change. I think part of that is because housing supply kind of pops up when someone indicates that they want to exchange it, like they are ready to rent it out, or they're ready to sell, or they're ready to buy. And I don't know if this trend today and people starting to like indicate their interest in selling or moving earlier will help with that. But it seems like that could be a really important change and could cause, some interesting things in terms of how people buy homes or invest in real estate. Yeah,
that actually could have answered number 3. What's one trend you think would go away is the visibility or lack of visibility of new inventory or available inventory. It's the reason I have far too many real estate apps on my phone, because I know that there's a ton of overlap, but I also know that one app doesn't show everything. And so I got to set up all these smart alerts and things in all different places that I'm watching and following in order to get the full picture, because it's really difficult. And I imagine it's even that much more difficult for the consumer who doesn't know what is all available and out there, or way things could be or should be. So I've lost that lens. I can no longer see it through that perspective, but it's okay. I want to hit you with a bonus question. This is a first time ever I'm asking a question. I literally just thought of it And I think I'm going to institute this as a new question. Okay. I know you weren't prepared for this. I did not prepare you for this at all. But do you consider Arrived Homes to be a tech company or a real estate company? Why?
Yeah, we actually consider it like a financial services company. Interestingly enough, I mean, at the end of the day, we want to help people invest in real estate in a way that effectively drives their cost of housing down on a monthly basis. And so that's really our end goal. The fact that we manage real estate is really just because that's the most efficient way for us to do that. By being kind of the kind of full stack, being the owner and manager of properties gives us an operating efficiency that allows us to give all these incentives back to our renters. But at the end of the day, we kind of see ourselves as a financial services company.
All right. We're going to move into the last 3 questions, Ryan. These are questions for our listeners to better get to know you personally. First one is, what are you reading?
Yeah, it's a good point. Do I have to, does it have to be nonfiction?
No, you can say whatever it is. Tell me Dr. Seuss for all I care. I mean, it's whatever you like to read.
Oh, no, I'm kidding. I finally read Sam Zell's book, which I think was pretty interesting. But a lot of my reading of books is really for fun. I read recently, it's called Artemis by Andy Weir. He was the guy who wrote, I guess, The Martian, that the movie came out and all that stuff, but pretty good nonfiction book. And then outside of that, most of my reading day to day is kind of online. And it's where I just prefer for like industry information and learning that way, kind of the shorter form of whether it's news or podcasts or anything like that to kind of keep up to date. Yeah,
very cool. Question number 2, who are you learning from?
Yeah, so for us, just in coming to this space and, not having a very long standing history in real estate, I mean, really been trying to learn from those that have been working in this space for a very long period of time. So there's a couple of mentors here locally in Seattle that we've spent time with. We've joined a couple of online communities. Geek Estate has been one that's been fun that we've been.
Shout out to Drew. We're going to get him on the podcast.
Shout out to Drew.
I'm going to get him on the podcast. Like, it's going to happen. I need to send him an email today and make that happen.
I think that's how we met too, through a Geek Estate lunch.
Yep, we went to one of the Geek Estate lunches at the taco place in Pioneer Square.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we've been trying to spend time and really learn from the community that's been in this space for a very long time.
I mean, I'm still rooting for the Pacific Northwest to come up and everyone to recognize the real estate tech and innovation that's coming out of that city, even though I'm in the Midwest and, I'm now flying a Chicago flag. But there are so many, there is such a vibrant community, as what I would call it, building in Seattle that I know it's a lot of early stage, seed stage startups. I think in the next few years, I think people are going to really take note, if they haven't, not just Seattle for the growth in real estate and for the the titans that have already been there for some years dominating, but I think the next wave, I think it's going to come out of Seattle. So you got some good people around you. All right, last one here. What inspires you?
Yeah, I think day to day it's just talking to people who are interested in what we're doing. Even, and I mentioned this earlier, but the feedback a lot of times can be polar, like very critical of the model or very excited about the model. And honestly, it's like motivating on either side. The fact that like we're even doing something that causes a conversation, or that for those that have joined the service, makes a difference. in their life, or gives them a new option. That's the daily motivation. Anytime I go a period of time without talking to like potential members, I definitely feel it. Like it's a small hit to morale. And when we have like, weeks where we're just talking to a lot of people, it's very motivating.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, hey, Ryan, I really appreciate your time here on a Saturday afternoon, morning for you, talking with me, sharing about Arrived Homes. I'm glad I get to talk to you. Am I at the first podcast interview for you guys?
Yeah, first podcast interview, maybe first podcast I've ever done.
There it is. Add that to another one. TechNest is the first on the beat, what's happening in the real estate tech space. I really appreciate you sharing what you got going on. I think it's innovative. It's interesting. And I think there's a lot of people that would be very interested to hear what you guys are doing. Before I close out the show, I want to give an opportunity to you for people who want to connect to you, learn more about Arrived Homes. Where can they find you and info on Arrived Home?
Yeah, first of all, Nate, thank you very much. It's been a ton of fun. And if anyone's interested in reaching out, we're just arrivedhomes.com, and I'm Ryan at arrivedhomes.com. Send me an email. Would love to chat.
Oh, there it is. Well, thank you so much. We'll be following along. And next time I'm in the Northwest, well, I know I was just there, but next time I'm in the Northwest, I'll plan a little bit of a longer trip, and maybe we can get the whole Geek Estate squad together.
That sounds perfect. Yeah.
All right.
Part 2 on the tacos.
Sounds good. All right. We'll see you.
See you, Nate.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening to the TechNest podcast. Hey, don't forget you can get on the email list so you never miss an upcoming episode. That's technest.io. That's technest.io. Get on the email list. Go to the App Store, whether you found us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you found us. Leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends. And if you've got a guest or someone that you'd like to recommend, or if you think that you'd be a great guest on the show, hey, send me an email, nate@realteampanda.com. That's nate@realteampanda.com. See you guys later.